Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for registering and joining this webinar. For those who don't know me, my name is Sergey Alekseev. I'm the sales manager in charge of Europe, CIS, and Middle East and Africa customers and countries here in AEQ. First of all our thoughts, of course, with the victims of this terrible pandemic, their friends and their families, okay? Also, I would like me personally to address a special greeting to all our partners working hard during these days in the broadcast business and make the broadcast possible. Okay, so today this webinar we are going to speak about the routine mixing of audio over IP for radio with AEQ and Dante technology. Okay, so as you probably know, AEQ is a long-term partner of Audinate, the company which is behind the Dante protocol. Okay, and we have a large list of products that features and support the Dante protocol. Okay, me personally, I'm gonna go through with you not too deeply, don't worry, in our product range and all the products that we have, all the equipment that support the Dante protocol. Okay, I'm not going to be the only one in this webinar today. There's a couple of colleagues join me today. So the first person who will join us is Julian Carro. Julian is the account director system solution for EMEA countries at Audinate, which is the company behind the Dante protocol. Okay, we are very pleased that Julian is joining us today, and he has a large experience in audio over IP environment and obviously a great knowledge about all the features of the Dante protocol. Okay, hello Julian, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. And for some reason, at that moment when you say I have a lot of experience, it's precisely when my webcam decides not to work any longer. So this is show business, folks. It's live.
So yes.
Please forgive me. Everything looks fine on my side, but obviously I can see that you cannot see me. So give me a moment to play around with that. But yes, delighted to be here. And I hope eventually you'll be able to see me as well.
Okay, hope to see you in a couple of minutes. Okay, the second person who will join us after Julian is Roberto Tejero. Roberto is our colleague and friend here in AEQ. Roberto is our product manager, and Roberto is obviously Dante certified, okay, and he has a lot of experience deploying audio over IP networks all around the world, not only for Spanish customers, but also in 4-inch projects, okay. Not only in radio, but yes, also in TV environment. Okay, so it's going to be quite interesting because Roberto will explain us a little bit more deeply about the Dante routing and TDM routing and some AEQ equipment. Okay.
Hello.
How you doing, Roberto?
Hi, fine. Fine, thank you.
Okay.
How are you?
Okay, fine. Nice to hear you. We are back in the office, so you are close to me. You're just like maybe 20 meters from me. In another, looks like we are separately, but we are just keeping the distance. So Peter, Roberto is in an office, and I'm in the other one. But we are here in AEQ in our facility.
We are in separated books because we have here the in case we need.
Oh yes. We obviously, by the way, we keep working with our masks, but as we are here in the webinar, we are in separated office, and we just take it off. Okay, so no, in a normal way, we work with the masks. Okay,
we work with the masks.
Exactly. So, and the last colleague that will join us is Peter Howarth. Okay, Peter Howarth is the sales manager in charge of special projects, the Scandinavian markets, UK, and also he's in charge of the USA office. Okay, so Peter, by the way, is probably the person with more knowledge and experience about Dante and audio over IP network here in AEQ. So Peter has been involved in a lot of most of the challenging projects in recent history in AEQ, and especially involved in projects with huge audio over IP networks. Okay, so it's going to be quite interesting to hear what he will explain us today. Peter was going to show us some recent projects and the different scenarios in order to deploy and migrate from analog and digital to audio over IP, especially in some radio projects. How are you doing, Peter?
All right, thank you very much for that introduction, Sergey. That was a bit exaggerated, but there you go. Someone has to take the blame for it, so there you go. So thank you very much, and good morning, everyone.
Okay, so let's start from the first part of the presentation, which is my part. Okay, I will quite briefly will make a small introduction for the of AEQ for those who don't know our company. So basically, AEQ is a Spanish company based here in Madrid. It's almost 40 years old already, and we are specialized in development, manufacturing, selling equipment for broadcast industry, radio and TV. Okay, as you may know, AEQ has, let's say, three fields of products, like three fields of work. First one is the radio business. Here we have we manufacture and offer mixers, codecs, telephone hybrids, talk show system, multi-conference solutions, and so on, etc. For the TV environment, for the TV broadcast business, we offer broadcast monitors and small, medium, and small size intercom solutions. Okay, intercom solutions. Okay, this is the second field, and the last one is big sport events. Also, AEQ has a large experience in big sport events. We have been a supplier for the Winter and Summer Olympic Games and for many years, and we are specialized in communication. So here we offer audio routing and also the commentary units, commentary positions. Okay, we'll speak about that a bit deeply in a couple of minutes. Okay, so regarding the AoIP equipment, regarding the equipment made here in AEQ that is able to support the IP interface, the Dante interface. In this case, especially, we have audio mixing consoles, matrices, AoIP network interfaces in order to transform digital and analog pads into IP pads. Okay, codecs, talk show systems, as I mentioned, automation and ancillary equipment, so like monitors, audio processors, and so on. Okay, so in terms of mixers, in terms of radio equipment that support AoIP networking and Dante interface, we have three examples. Okay, so basically AEQ has been manufacturing mixing consoles for almost 30 years now. So we started obviously with analog mixers, okay, that we moved to digital, and nowadays we still have some digital mixers, but more and more obviously we are focused in IP mixers, IP mixing consoles. Okay, so from the biggest one to the smallest one, as you can see, the first one, the biggest one, is the AEQ Atrium mixer. Okay, sorry, back to you. And sorry, yes. Live show, folks, sorry. Okay, so the Atrium mixer is our latest mixer. Okay, it's the biggest one here in AEQ. Okay, so it was introduced in the IBC show and the NAB show in the last year, in 2019. Okay, I'm very happy to say that it's already manufacturing, so we are already delivering this mixer to the customers. Okay, we started this year. Basically, now I don't want to go quite deeply in it because it could take more than an hour to explain all about this new mixer. So basically, it's able to handle up to 1024 audio inputs and outputs. Okay, it can obviously incorporate any number of Dante AoIP cards. Okay. Each one has 64 inputs and outputs. Okay, we'll go in to see in a couple of minutes the engine of this mixer, and I will explain you how it goes with the Dante boards. Okay, so each, as you can see in the picture, each mixer, each surface is able to manage up to 96 faders. Yes, 96 faders. Okay, and the engine is able to work with several surfaces. Okay, next mixer is the Forum. Okay, here we have two solutions, the Forum IP and Forum Split. The big difference between the Forum IP and the Split is that the Forum Split comes with the separated engine. Okay, and the Forum IP, it's all in one. Here in the picture, in the bottom of the page on the right, you can see the on the right, you can see the Forum Split, okay, the one which is countersunk in the table. That's the perfect example. Okay, basically this one is this mixer is a medium size, okay, and can fit almost 60 or 75% of all radio stations all around the world in terms of requirements. Okay, so it's able to manage up to 24 faders, and also just like the Atrium, the engine is modular. Okay, so you can select the boards that you need, and you can make your own mixer in terms of your requirements. Okay, and the smallest one is the Forum Lite and the Capital Mixer. The Capital Mixer is the one that you can see down on the left in the picture. Okay, it's the big difference between the Capital and the previous mixers is that Capital is fixed. Okay, it's a fixed solution with only 8 faders. But still you have the possibility to add the Dante AoIP boards in both in Forum and in the Capital. What's the big difference until almost today, that in Forum Split, the medium size, you were able to connect the Dante board with 32 inputs and outputs, okay? And the Capital was, until recently, only 16 audio inputs and outputs. But now you have the option to also have 32 inputs and outputs for the Capital as well, okay? So it's advantage because many customers were demanding this in order to give us more Dante pads for the Capital, and now you have that option. Okay, so basically in terms of mixers, that's all I wanted to say. Once again, you can always go to our website, okay, and all the brochures and catalogs, also application notes are available. So further information you may need, also please, you are very welcome to check out all the details on our website. And if you still need some additional information, so you can contact us directly. We will be very pleased to help you indeed also. Okay, so in terms of engines, okay, also quite briefly, as you can see on the right, the first one, the biggest one, is the X-Core. X-Core is the engine for the Atrium mixer. Okay, so it's a 4-rack unit engine solution. As you can see, you have up to 20 slots, okay, 20 slots in order to incorporate your board. So here you can decide to incorporate audio, analog, digital, your DSP boards, okay. And as we mentioned, the AoIP, the Dante boards. Each board, as I mentioned, is able to manage up to 32 inputs and outputs, and you can add as much as you need, okay. So obviously it's modular and expandable, so if you need more boards, if you need more slots, you can add just another engine and keep going on, okay, till you get what you need. A second one, which is in the middle of the picture, is the engine of the Forum Split. This one is 3-rack units, okay, engine, and has 14 slots, in this case 14 spaces for different boards. So here you can select USB, telephone hybrid, XLR inputs for the microphones and outputs, digital, IS, whatever you may need. And obviously you can integrate the Dante interface, and you will be able to manage up to 32 inputs and outputs in Dante with this mixer, okay, with this engine. Okay, and the last one is obviously the engine for the Capital mixer, as you can see on the bottom on the right. In the same way as the mixer, the engine of the Capital is a fixed solution, okay, so here basically the only thing that you can add or select is the telephone hybrids, the Dante interface, and redundancy, the redundant power supply. That's all. Okay. So once again, I would like to remind that now you have the the option of the 32 inputs and output Dante interface for the Capital, just like in the Forum. Okay. So now you have that possibility. Okay, it was, I believe, all in terms of mixes. Once again, if you have some further questions, we have a Q&A session in the end of the webinar. Okay, so you are very pleased to place all your questions now or in the end of it when we will open the Q&A session. Okay, next one. In terms of mattresses, okay, a couple of years ago, AEQ decided to offer AoIP mattresses, 100% AoIP mattresses. So AEQ has a large experience in terms of routing and analog and digital matrix in very, very big sizes. Now we are working with the X-Core, okay, which is like the engine of the Atrium, okay. But previously we worked with the digital one, which was the BC 2000. And previously we had analog routing. So AEQ has a large experience in supplying and manufacture this kind of big size and medium size audio matrices, okay? And a couple of years ago, many customers started to demand smaller solutions 100% based on audio over IP. So many customers, maybe you, for example, you don't need 100, 1000 or 500 audio pads or inputs and outputs. Maybe you have maybe you have a radio studio and you have one studio, 2, 3, or 4. So maybe 64 pads or maybe up to 100 is more than enough for you. So that's why we decided to come up with the Netbox DSP solution. So just quite briefly, once again, so you have several solutions, depends on the sizes and depends on the quantity of the channels that and audio pads that you need to manage. Okay, so the smallest one is the Netbox 32 ADMX. Okay, it's a compact mattress able to handle up to 64 audio inputs and outputs. Okay, of this 64, we have 32 obviously audio over IP Dante inputs and 32 outputs. Okay, and from this on, we have the Netbox DSP solution. So here we are able to manage from 64 up to 160 audio inputs and outputs. Okay, the Netbox DSP has all the advantages and all the features that an audio matrix should have. You have alarms, schedules, and a lot of quite useful features. Please hold on, stay with us, because Roberto will join us. He will speak more deeply about this, about all these features of the audio over IP matrices and routing in AEQ. Okay, and the biggest one, which is the AEQ X Core, okay, as we mentioned previously. So this one is also 100% modular, as you can see in the picture at the bottom of the page on the right. It's modular, so you have in every single engine you have 20 slots, and you are able to incorporate in this case Dante interfaces, Dante boards. Okay, each one is able to handle once again up to 64 inputs and outputs. Okay, so this mattress is able to handle up to 5,120 inputs and outputs. Okay, so it's more than enough for a big radio corporation or TV corporation, for example. Okay, let's move forward. Here's a good example of migration from our analog and digital to the IP world. Okay, the example that we see, the scenario on the right, is based on TSF, which is radio station in Lisbon, based in Lisbon in Portugal. They have been for many years customers and friends in AEQ. Okay, and a couple of years ago, they were working with analog and digital devices, many digital devices like audio, like mixers and audio matrices from AEQ, and obviously they decided to start with the migration to the IP world. So as you can see here, they are going step by step, slowly but surely, continue with the migration to the IP world. So nowadays they still have some digital mixers working, like the Arenas you can see in the picture, and also they have the BC2000 matrix, okay, the digital matrix. So as you can see, the control rooms and the studio are connected with the data center by IS and also by Dante. Okay, so they have the audio signals running by different paths. Okay, probably in a couple of years they will completely migrate to audio over IP, but as you know, you not able to do this this migration in one day from one to another, because they still believe in their digital and analog equipment, and because it takes time. So probably in a couple of years, all this scenario will be 100% IP based using the Dante protocol. Okay, once again, Peter will join us in the end of the webinar, and he will bring you some really good and interesting examples of audio IP environment and migration of radio studios to audio over IP. Okay, so so let's moving forward. Okay, another sort of equipment equipment which support Dante technology is our commentary unit. Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning, AEQ has large experience in commentary systems for big sport events. Okay, so we have a large experience in the Olympic Games, and we've been supplying commentary units all around the world for the last years, since 1992, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so the Olympia 3 is our latest commentary unit. Okay, it's 100% IP based. It's the first standalone commentary unit made in AEQ. Okay, it has Dante AoIP connectivity. Okay, and for those who don't know the commentary units, in this case, it's quite useful so you can use them not only in big sport events, but also, yes, in journalist booths, simultaneous translation sets, off-tube, and also in OB vans. Okay, so once again, if you need more information, just get in the website and get in contact with us, and we'll be very pleased to give you more explanations and further details about this and other products. Okay, another range of products are the codecs. Okay, once again, AEQ has a large experience in manufacturing codecs. We started in the beginning of the 90s. Okay, and the Phoenix Venus 3 is a very reliable and fantastic equipment. Okay, it's been all around the world, so you can find customers using the Venus 3 in I don't know, United States, Brazil, Greece recently, Japan, Russia as well. For example, national radio and TV of Russia, the Vergaterka, is using a lot of this Venus 3 equipment, a lot of this codecs. Okay, and of course this codec, the latest one, is 100% IP based. It's full duplex, 2 channels, 2 audio IP channels, full duplex. Okay, it's a codec, so encoder and decoder, and it features the Dante interface. Okay, in this case. Next one, next equipment is, sorry, give me a second. Everything's okay. Yes, we have a small chat in it, so it's distracting me a little bit. Second, another sort of equipment is the Systel IP. Okay, Systel IP is a unique product. Okay, it's our talk show system and multi-conference system, special designed to manage all the calls, incoming calls, and the communications in your radio and TV. Okay, so I really recommend you to go on the website and check all the features of the Systel IP, because once again, we should somehow in the future make a webinar especially for the Systel IP, because once again, it's a unique solution. Okay, so we have a couple of videos in the website, so please go ahead and check all the possibilities that this equipment can offer you for your radio station. So it's really unique. So this one, Systel IP, is able to manage up to 16 incoming call at the same time. Okay, it's quite flexible, so you can route and send all your incoming calls and distribute them in your different studios for up to 4 studios in this case. Okay, and obviously it has Dante connectivity, it has the Dante interface, and has 32 IP inputs and outputs in this case. So as you can see here on the picture on the right, the one which is shown here is the Systel IP16, but we have also the 8-line solution. So if you need to manage up to 8 lines, you can also go for the Systel IP Basic, which is for 8 lines. Okay, and let's say the last but not the least equipment that support the Dante connectivity, it's our automation solution. Okay, our latest generation of automation for radio industry, it calls Audio Plus. Okay, it's the 4th generation of automation software developed here in AEQ, 100% developed and supported by us. We have technical support in Spanish and English, and basically don't want to go quite deeply because once again, can take a lot of time to speak about all the features that it has. So it's able to manage up to 4 stereo programs per workstation, automatic remote controlled and broadcast. Okay, so you have automatic programming of music and advertisement. Okay, and obviously you have special applications for journalists, continuity recording, and obviously file extraction and management. Okay. So next equipment I would like to mention is, sorry, that was not my part, that one. And not only the broadcast equipment can support the Dante protocol. So basically nowadays you can build an entire radio station, radio studio with all the equipment that you need. That probably 99% of that equipment will be able can support the Dante protocol. So as you can see here, the list is quite large, but anyway, Julian will join us in a couple of seconds. It will explain us more deeply all the products that are able to work with Dante. So a short list, but anyway, just to go quite briefly in it. So you have any kind of equipment that you may need with the Dante protocol. Okay, so you have power amplifiers, the video embedders, monitors, speakers, microphones, visual radio system also, personal sound recording mixers. So everything you may need to build your radio station and to migrate to IP world, you will have it. So probably Julian will correct me if I'm mistaken, but more than 400 manufacturers nowadays support the Dante control, and the list is rising and growing every day.
No need to correct you. That's absolutely right.
Okay, thank you, my friend. Okay, and more than, I believe this one is maybe 2,500 different equipment nowadays support.
No, we've got an update. So whatever number we come up with, it will be wrong in a matter of months or weeks. So
yes.
Yeah, it's already gone up. It's already gone up.
Okay, Junior will show you how that's the most interesting part for me of the presentation. The difference between the amount of equipment that support nowadays Dante, if you compare with the other audio AoIP protocol in the world. So you will see it will show you the figures, the numbers, and it's not a surprise because actually Dante is quite well known, and many customers and manufacturers nowadays keep supporting this protocol, and also AEQ. So I believe that was all from my side. So thank you very much for your attention. I believe that's been interesting and useful so far. I will pass the lead to Julian. So
Thank you.
Yours, sir.
I appreciate it. Unfortunately, Sergey, due to the technical problem that I had a little moment ago, has, despite rebooting my machine, persisted. So I have no ability to share my video. I hope I will still be able to share the presentation, and you can hear me. Can you still hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Excellent. I do apologize, everyone. Unfortunately, I can't get video through into the webinar client. So can you still see my presentation though, Sergey?
In my case, personally, I can see the last page of mine. So I don't know if you have the control of the screen. So
I believe so.
I believe we can see the presentation. So yes, Julian.
Okay.
You're okay.
Excellent. Okay. So, I do apologize for the lack of video. It was working during the pre-webinar rehearsal. Sadly, this is live, and this is what happens. Right. So delighted to be here, despite not being visible to you. I'm Julian Carro. I'm the EMEA Solutions Director for EMEA, and I'm here to explain to you a little bit about Dante and Audinate. So the two things are different. Audinate is the company, Dante is the technology. We are an Australian company headquartered out of Sydney, and Dante is our product, what we have brought to the market in terms of a solution for transmitting high quality pro audio in a very time sensitive way, very deterministic latency way across a standard Ethernet network. So it's a combination of software, hardware, networking protocols that we have delivered to our OEM partners. They incorporate that technology, and we ensure that all products that use Dante can transmit audio across the network and can work seamlessly with other Dante products from different manufacturers. So the Dante portfolio consists of hardware modules that, like the sort of products that AEQ incorporate into their finished broadcast solution. We also have development tools that assist them in making that integration quicker and easier and tighter. And then we have software products which we bring to the users, to people who are deploying Dante solutions for their particular installation. We have Dante Controller, which Roberto will explain in greater detail, that serves to patch between transmit and receive channels. Dante Virtual Sound Card, which serves to get audio in and out of a PC or Mac. Dante Via, which is a similar type of solution, but orientated also towards the podcasting world, as it allows you to select a particular audio source, like an application or an attached device inside your PC. And Dante Domain Manager, which is our installation supervisor solution that monitors a Dante installation, provides control of user access into that installation, logs any activity in the network, and also sends notifications should something go awry or wrong in that installation. We recently announced 2 additions to these Avio adapters, but we have this small range of very incredibly useful and very popular Dante adapters. They convert to and from Dante from different technologies, whether it's legacy analog audio or USB, AES, EDU, and shortly there will be a Bluetooth version coming out as well. So these have now grown into 8 products and are hugely successful in the market. When I say that Dante is a solution adopted by various manufacturers, there's quite a few. This is only a small section of the manufacturers. We have over 400 manufacturers that have got products in the market today. Anything that I show you now is almost guaranteed to be out of date within a week or a month or so, as more and more partners come on board. It is now almost easier to determine who is to say who is not a Dante partner than it is to go through the list and say who is a Dante partner. And for those of you that want to see where AEQ is, there they are. They're inside that chart as well. At the beginning of the meeting, Sergey explained that we had 2,500 products available on the market from various manufacturers that supported Dante. And that information was correct in February. February was when we last looked at the figures at ISE, when we were still doing trade shows, and we counted that there were an additional almost 200 products since what we knew from a previous polling, and we announced that we had 2,500. Obviously, February was approximately 7 months ago, and in 7 months, a lot can happen, and we're now at 2,800 products. So what we can see in there is that the general trend of Dante is ever upward, even an acceleration compared to, say, 4 years ago, when it was a rather modest 500 or 1,000 products on the market. Whilst we are large in terms of we are 8 times larger than the closest audio over IP competitor in terms of the number of devices supporting that technology, I think it's actually more interesting to say that there are 4.6 times as many Dante supporting products as all the other audio over IP technologies on the market combined. So it's a very, very popular technology. The reason why it's why it's popular is because Dante equipment is 100% compatible with other Dante equipment. We are not a democracy. We decide what the chipsets do. We decide what the software does. We have that control. We ensure that somebody's microphones work with somebody else's microphones, somebody else's DSP, somebody else's amplifiers, somebody else's speakers, anybody else's console. It is Dante, and so that compatibility ensures that customers know that whatever they buy today, they'll be able to add additional products and expand their Dante installation tomorrow from the widest range of products on the market, bar none. Dante is, however, an audio over IP solution, and as such, people who perhaps come from a more broadcast focused or radio focused or audio focused world will have to deal with the concepts of networking. However, we try to make that as easy as possible. We have a lot of training on our website, which is available in multiple languages. That certification that you take after the training also contributes points to a professional qualification from Avixia, the CTS qualification, and so it adds additional credits to that certificate. It's all free of charge. It can be published on your LinkedIn page, so it's a good thing to do to show that you understand Dante before you go and actually implement it. I won't go into the deeper details. I will leave that to the far more able Roberto to do after I finish my presentation. But briefly, Dante devices, the way that they operate is really simple from a user perspective. Once a Dante device is connected on a network, it advertises that it's there, that it's got these transmit channels, and that it has these receive channels. Those channels are visible from within a Dante controller or Dante controller-like application. We have third parties that have implemented our API into their product. And then patching is, as Roberto will show you, a simple case of making a click at the intersection between the transmit line, which is on the vertical, on the horizontal at the top, and the receive, which is along the vertical line on the bottom. Where those two channels intersect or cross, you make a click, boom, there's a patch. That's it. You're now transmitting audio from one device to another. You can scale this as large as you like. No one has created a network too large for Dante. You can also save configurations. So if you often switch between different styles or different setups, you do not have to spend an hour beforehand unplugging and replugging things in. No, you just load in a preset, apply it, boom. Your network is now reconfigured with this other setting that you had saved previously. We work with standard Ethernet switches. You do not need a special license on the switch. Theoretically, if somebody took over a hotel and rented all the rooms, as long as the console could fit through the door of the bedroom, you'd be able to record an album inside a hotel, because Dante is a purely Ethernet solution. And as long as you can connect it onto the network, then you can send audio from one device to another. It can be 5 meters away, 10 meters away, 100 meters away over standard UTP cable. And obviously you can get several kilometers using fiber. We recommend working with 1 gigabit solutions, but obviously it's Ethernet. If you've got a faster connection, great, use it. You can just send more than 500 channels down that one pipe. We don't care which switch you use, whether it's managed or unmanaged. It can be Cisco, Netgear, TP-Link, Huawei, Avaya, HP, Dell. We don't care. Luminex do some, and Yamaha do some as well, which are preset with some QoS settings and profiles for Dante, but any switch will work. There's no need for an additional license. You could theoretically turn up on site tomorrow to any company that has Ethernet and deploy a Dante solution using that installed network. So this leads me to my last slide, which is an image of Dante controller. This is the typical tool that the majority of Dante users are familiar with using. It allows them to see all of the equipment that is transmitting along the horizontal line on the top, and they see all of the receivers in that vertical line on the left-hand side. And where you see, if you want to connect one product to another, you just make a click where those things join. And if you need to send audio to multiple devices, you can make multiple clicks. It is possible with Dante to share your audio from a transmitter into multiple receivers. This solution, Dante is made for simplicity. So you will see everything that is in your subnet or in your VLAN. If you add a significant number of devices and you are traversing different subnets or having to set up VLANs, one thing that we recommend people look at is our Dante Domain Manager solution, which allows you to send audio between different subnets and different VLANs, and also to put in access control so that users can only manage the equipment and the zones that they're expected and they've been tasked with managing. With that, I'm going to stop presenting now and ask Roberto to join in so that he can take you in a deeper explanation of how Dante works within the AEQ system.
Sorry. Hello, Julian.
Hello, Roberto.
Nice to hear you because I
can't see me any longer. Sorry, can't see me any longer.
Well, thank you very much for your collaboration in this webinar and the presentation about Dante. Well, now we are talking about the routine. We have two kind of routine in that presentation. We talk about the both Dante routine and TDM routine. The first one, Dante routine, as Julian said in that part of the presentation, Dante allows us to distribute audio among the different devices using only a network, an Ethernet network. It's very easy to use and very powerful because we can send audio from one device to any other device in that network very easy using a software. In that case, Dante controller, it's free software that you can download it from the Audinate web page. And it's a very powerful tool to have that routine, and we can see it in a moment. Well, only comment about Dante that it's like wires. This is a comparison because Dante allows us to distribute that audio, but we can compare Dante, or we can use Dante like virtual wires, virtual cables. In that case, we can send one channel to any other equipment, and in case we need to change that channel and send this channel or distribute it to any other devices, we only need to use that software, and using only clicking in a screen, we can send that audio. In case we have analog wires or digital wires, in that case digital point-to-point wires like AS3 or maybe MADI, etc. We need to install wires, or we need to have an installation, or to go to a patch panel and change in that patch panel the connection. We can compare the both system, and Dante is very easy to use, very powerful, and of course very secure. Well, with that introduction, we are going to show you the well, here. Oh, sorry, because we have sorry. Well, here we could have the Dante controller. As I say, it's a free software that we can download it. It's very easy to use because in general we have an automatic IP in the devices. Of course, we could increase the complexity of the installation and have fixed IP, etc. But in general, the idea is we can take the device from the box, install in our network, and Dante controller auto discover it, and we have that device in the software. Well, here in that part, when the software auto discover the devices, here we have the devices in the vertical lines here in the top and in the left part. Well, here we have the transmitters, and here the receivers. One device could be transmit and receive at the same time, maybe a console, maybe a matrix, or an automatization system, etc. In that case, we could send audio and receive audio. In that case, we have transmitters and receivers in the same device. Well, Of course, we have devices that only transmit audio, like microphones, because we have used that audio to send it to any other devices, or only receive, like speakers. In that case, we have that devices only in transmit or in receivers. Well, when the software auto discover the device, here we have, and when we click in one device, we can see the different channels, audio channels in that device. Well, as I said, Dante is very easy to use because we don't need to look after the IPs only in the installation. Because the names of the devices, it's the important identification. In that case, we identify the devices for the name. We can change that name, we can change the name of the channels, and it's very easy to know what device it is. We don't know the IP address, but only the name of that device. Well, in that case, we have here one transmitter, a SAT transmitter. That here we have network 32, and here we have network 32 in transmitter and receivers, because it has the both functionalities, and the name of the channels are different because we have different channels to transmit and to receive. Well, how to distribute that audio, how to send audio or make like a wire, a virtual wire from one transmitter to one or several receivers. Well, it's very easy. Here we have across the vertical line, so as the transmitter, and the horizontal line, the receivers. Here we can send audio from one audio channel to any other channel in any other device. Here, like only clicking here, we have send audio. We make the virtual wire from one device to one receiver. Of course, we can make several channels, several cross point between one device to any other device. We can distribute audio. One audio channel, we can transmit that audio to several receivers. In that case, we can transmit to several channels in the same receiver or in different receivers. It's very easy to distribute audio. The only limitation is in one receiver, we cannot send audio from more than one transmitter. In that case, here we have a cross point, and if I want to send audio from any other channel to the same receiver, it changes the cross point because we only send one audio. Well, as I say, it's very easy to use. You can see it, and of course that software has a lot of characteristic of synchronization, etc. Well, we can use not only that software for make the cross point, we can control or monitor the devices. Here, when I click on one device, I can go to latency, and I can see the status of the devices. Here, when I can see the cross points, the send audio from the networks 8 to the networks 32. I can see the different levels of latency during the time. Here in green, we have no problem. It's lower than 2 milliseconds. But here we have in orange or in yellow, depends on the monitor or the screen. You can see that it's close to the limit. Here we have the setting of 2 milliseconds. It's very low latency between devices, but we could have less than 1 millisecond, around microseconds. And here we have peaks of latency of 2 milliseconds. In that case, we can see that maybe we have a problem in our network or in our device. We can determine that maybe this is a tool to see maybe we have a problem, and we can solve it around that. Well, as I say, it's very easy to use, and it has a lot of more configuration, but we don't have enough time. But it's very easy to root with that tool and distribute that audio. Well, going back to the presentation here, we have any other kind of routing that it's TDM routing. Dante routing, it's when we use devices and we route the audio through the network, only using the network, and TDM routing needs a device. It's inside a device. Well, what's the advantage of that TDM routing? TDM routing, in case of AEQ, we can use maybe the netbox, netbox 32, netbox DSP with process, and of course our new X core, a new core of audio matrix and consoles or intercom system. It's that core can allow us to have TDM routing. Well, the advantage is to have more control over the signal. We could have different users with different permissions to control the system, different views, as I said, in the software, and we can control physical lines and virtual or logical lines. We can group it maybe, or group them using stereo or multi-channel. We can control the level of the audio, in the cross point, in the input, in the output. We can add processing. This capacity is maybe one of the most important in that devices, because we can, like we can see here, frequency filters like high pass filters, low pass, equalization. Of course, we can add a dynamic process like compressors, expansors, etc. Of course, we can add different controls or different process tools, like adding control over virtual or physical GPI, GPO, general purpose inputs and outputs, control of alarms, programming or scheduling by time or by this general purpose inputs, to have macros or different functions. Well, to see better that way, we have that software. This software is the real-time control. It's a software to control our TDM devices, in that case X-Core, or maybe VC2000, etc. Here we have a monitoring area. We can have different views of panels. We can check the audio, and here, like in Dante controller, we could have the cross point between inputs and output. Of course, we can send that audio over Dante at other interfaces, as I said, and then here we make the cross point. In the cross point, we can control maybe the level of the signals in the input, outputs, and cross points. Of course, we can group it like in stereo. We could have, and maybe have different process, like maybe an equalization. And here we have different presets and control in real time the parameter of that equalization or other kind of a process in that signal. We can add it maybe a test tone signal, etc. And we have the advantage that from one input, here we have the inputs, here we have the outputs. In one output, we can add several inputs and sum that signals. This part we we don't have in Dante, we need to do here in equipment that can process and zoom that signal. Of course, we have a schedule to program different events in a time and date concrete. There's several times we can repeat, like cross points, salvos, and macros. It's a group of actions, and we can select if we want to repeat it or not, and the time. We have, of course, the control of the alarms. Yeah, we don't have anyone, but we control, and in case we have a problem in one input, or we detect there are no audio in that input, we can start an alarm and make a cross point to send audio, maybe from any device or etc. We control that. Of course, we have a panic control or panic button to restart the system to a safe configuration, or to have different panels. Here we have maybe retard to have in case of touch screen to have buttons, or maybe with the mouse. That software has a lot of configuration, but it's very easy to use in general, and we have the control inside a device. This is the difference between the Dante and, sorry, I have to close that part. Well, here is the difference between Dante and I go to the presentation, Dante and TDM routine. Well, and we have the both routine. Well, the best way, or AEQ use the both, because use Dante to send the audio, to routing the audio among the different devices in our network using Ethernet, of course, and send that audio to a TDM routine in case we need in that TDM device, like X-Core or maybe a netbox, to add process to zoom that different inputs to one output, etc. In case of X-Core, we have different interfaces card to increase the number of inputs and outputs. X-Core has up to 1024 interfaces. We'll have 1024 audio channels, but with a Titan system, we upgrade up to 5,000 interfaces. It's very, very high system. In that case, we route using Dante to that devices, to that X-Core or maybe netbox, and then make the zooms or the process of the signal. In that case, we have the both words, the both system in one, and it's very, very useful, and of course very, very powerful. And well, this is the routine part of that presentation. Now Peter Howarth continue with more examples about installation, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. My part of the presentation will be, it was a great explanation, by the way, Roberto, because it gives us a good insight on how Dante and TDM routing combined will join together the best of two worlds. So what I will be showing you guys will be basically just some use cases or usage scenario in radio, principally, where we use either pure Dante routing, or we use a combination of Dante and TDM routing. So on the following pages, what we'll do is to show you 4 or 5 different use cases or different scenarios, and we will show you a short video from that basically represents any of these use case scenarios. So without further delay, what I will do is to show you briefly what we will be showing. In scenario number 1, basically we have a couple of studios that are only using Dante routing. So it's a small station, and in this case, it's actually daisy chained. Daisy chaining you can do. Obviously, in Dante, there's a recommendation of not doing this in more than 10 hops anyway, because and daisy chaining obviously is taking advantage of the inherent switching capability of the Dante devices, where we basically have 2 ports available on all the Dante devices. So we can actually do the daisy chaining, but in this case, we won't have a backup network. In this case, we have 2 controls, and we have a central studio, basically, that is shared between the 2 controls. So we can take control from either of the controls, control for Studio 1 or Studio 2. In essence, it's the same studio. In this studio, we have a small net box that takes care of capturing all the microphone signals and also providing the headphone outputs for monitoring for the guests and the anchors of that program. At the end, we have a small net box audio interface that is used as a signal converter, and can be connected to an STL, or could be connected to a codec that transports the audio to the remote site for transmission. And the last item that we would have here would be the PC with the Dante controller and a small control. So we could actually have a mix of both here, with both an RTC with a netbox RTC control, or in this case, just a simple signal conversion from Dante to analog or digital audio. So very straightforward. It's not a complex installation, but it gives provides a lot of flexibility, because we can share the signals between the 2 studios, and we can run at any given moment. We can run the program from either of the 2 controls available, and whilst one is controlling, the other one can be recording voice tracks or whatever, or just interviews. All right. We'll give you an example of this, and the first one we will show you would be a real case scenario, which is RAC Media. It's a relatively new public radio facility in Ras Al Khaimah. It's in the United Arab Emirates. It uses forum consoles in this case, and it's using a Netbox 32AD audio analog digital Dante network interface, where we can do the central, we can locate that unit in the central control to integrate the analog and digital inputs and outputs to the Dante network and the consoles, so we can share the signals between the different studios. The routing is basically just fixed links using the Dante controller between the consoles and the different the equipment that we have connected to the Dante controller. Sorry. So I'll show you real quick the video from RAC FM. I'll make sure I start the video as well. I'm sorry for the cut off there. That wasn't really what we wanted to see, because it's a pretty good example of how they can control the whole setup with the Dante controller and the netbox. Actually, okay. Moving on to scenario 2, which is basically on this diagram you will see 4 studios, and it's using TDM routing, which means that I'm joining the best of 2 worlds. I have basically fixed Dante routing to my TDM router, and in the TDM router I can handle the different things that I need to do with the signals. I can sum them, and I can also distribute them, and also add process to them. So basically a similar setup to the previous one, but in this case we are using not a daisy chain. We're using two networks, a primary network and a backup network, or a main and the backup. And we are using, in the central control, we're using a netbox 32 TDM router, which is basically a 64 by 64 summing and distributing non-blocking routing matrix. And so the signals are picked up in the studios. The studios can be either studio control or auto control, or we can have, as we have drawn it in this case, basically sharing studios between different controls, or different controls can control the same type of studio. Again, we have a PC with the controller software and the netbox RTC, where we can set up our scheduling, etc., etc. And then these signals, as I say, go to the central control, where we have our TDM routing matrix. And then we have a small audio interface that could also be our antenna switcher. So we can shoot out signals on STL, or take signals from the public internet, from outside reporters, etc., etc. So in this case, yes, we do have scheduling, and we do have real-time control over the routing matrix, which would be the case, which would not be the case if we had a simple Dante controller installation. Now, examples of that would be, for example, a small radio station in Sweden called Radio Lidköping. It's a local community station in the southwest, and they renovated and transitioned into an audio over IP facility early this year. They are using an AEQ forum split console, and they're using a small netbox 8 AD, and with the MX licensing, so they are running a scheduling and a real-time control software together with their Dante routing. So they can handle both dynamic routing between the consoles and third-party playout systems, and also use the netbox as a antenna switcher for their programming. They combine this with, they have a mixed operation. They use it in both traditional control studio and in auto control, handling all the signals from the proper studio, actually. So I'll show you this video. It's a very simple video, but it shows the power of Dante, and a customer that has basically gone from a completely analog installation to a full Dante featured and audio over IP featured installation. Okay, back to the main presentation again then. So scenario 3, this would be a similar setup as the one that we just saw, but with several studios, but only using Dante routing, not using a TDM system. It's very much doable, and it's a little bit like what we saw in the RAC FM situation, where we really don't need any sophisticated signal sharing and so on and so forth. In this case, basically what we have here is we have several controls, several studios as well. We draw them. We can either share them and so on. We could share the audio signals using directly the routing in the Dante controller between the different consoles, and we can make a combination of audio over IP equipment that includes both the mixing consoles and the netbox devices. The netbox devices, as Sergey explained, are basically signal converters and network interfaces. So we can convert analog digital signals bidirectionally to and from the Dante or audio over IP network. And so in this case, this solution doesn't allow any dynamically changing of sources and so on. You have to do it manually using the Dante controller, or have a fixed Dante routing on the console side, so you would be able to do some switching with the programmable buttons of the consoles. There's a good example of this, and that would be the University of Ariel. It's a university radio station in Israel. They have a campus radio with 3 studios, and what they're doing is basically to use the Dante controller with fixed cross points in Dante, and then they use the capital IP mixing consoles to do the signal sharing between the different equipment and the third-party playout software that are using Dante virtual sound cards. The AEQ Virtual Capital is a day-to-day tool for the switching between the different studios, because they have pre-programmed function buttons on the mixing consoles. So I'll show you the video from the University of Ariel. It's a pretty nice video. Shows it's deductive and shows you so basically they have radio studios and TV studios, and they are using 3 capital IP consoles to run the audio between the different locations. In the main control, they have the capital, where they do the radio programming. So the 20 programmable buttons that you can see there in the right corner are the ones that they program to do the switching of audio between the different studios. In this case, you have a control room, a radio studio, and a TV studio, so they can move the signals between them, and basically using the consoles as the signal format converters from analog digital to Dante and vice versa. And then with the programmable buttons on the console, they can shift the audio between the different studios, basically because they have planned, of course, in advance, and use the Dante controller to make the fixed cross points. So in reality, we're saying that we don't have it's a fixed routing, yes, but we're using the capital as a small TDM router locally as well. All right, so going back to the presentation. Okay, in the last couple of examples, we are looking at several studios, more complex installations, where we have large TDM routers, or using focusing very much on the TDM routing in combination with Dante, the power of cabling combined with the TDM routing. In this case, we're looking at a example or a scenario which is using an X-core, which is a large central routing matrix, where we have all the different studios installed around a central control, traditional central control. We're using two networks, of course, a main and the backup, because the importance of this station is probably quite high, and they can't afford to be off a single second. And so basically, we are running a large Dante network with a lot of different items here. And what we're doing here is to allow the large X-core routing matrix to do the signal conversion at central level. For example, using MADI and E1 T1 connectivity, analog, digital, and so on and so forth, and where we also concentrate all the signals from the audio over IP Dante network. And then obviously it's a fully bidirectional network, so we can take signals from all the different locations in the station and get them on the network and off the network. Right. There's a good example of this that I want to show you, and that is Radio Renascença. And this is one of the largest facilities in the world that we have installed with radio program production. It's a radio program production center with IP audio distribution using the Dante protocol and the AEQ equipment. There are relatively new facilities. They have 5 broadcast studios with AEQ mixes. There are 3 consoles, 6 recording and 4 journalist cabins. But when it says 5 broadcast studios, probably it's not referring to broadcast studios. We're looking at 5 broadcast networks, basically in one network. So they combine audio over IP networks with a TDM matrix, as we showed you in the drawing previously. There are 4 Dante networks, and they're all redundant. And each network is 512 channels, of course. We're looking at a large number of signals going through the networks for this station. And all the equipment, they're in the central control room. We don't have any local equipment in the studios except for the analog sources. There's no analog wiring between the central control and the studios. Dante here is essential because basically using standard structured cable data cabling, we are achieving what was in the past nightmare, basically, and required a lot of patching, etc., etc. The central control room has concentrated all the, let's say, external world connections. So it's the internet connections is in the central control and allows for the remote management of the whole network. All right, I'll show you the video of this because this is a great video and it gives us a good example, and it's a good insight of Dante and what Dante can do for you in terms of simplifying installations and rationalizing your station. Yeah, so and that's a great video actually, and that moves me on to the last scenario that we'll be showing you. It's very similar to the previous one. The big difference here is the size. Okay, we are looking at a much smaller facility. Not having said that, that doesn't mean that it's less important. But in this case, the installation that we're looking at in the drawing handles maximum 168 inputs and outputs using a Netbox DSP router. The difference between the Netbox 8.4.32 and the Netbox DSP is basically the DSP capability, which means that there are certain processes that we can apply, which is not possible to do with the Netbox, the other Netbox network interfaces. So we add basically the processing features that we have available in the large X-core large routing matrices are added into the Netbox. So the difference also between the Netbox DSP and the other Netbox network interfaces is that the Netbox DSP doesn't have any analog or digital inputs and outputs, so it wouldn't serve as it wouldn't be able to be used as an audio converter or audio interface for the audio over IP network, but used as a routing matrix in Dante. So in this case, we have two networks again, main and the backup. We take the signals the same way as we have done in the previous examples, and we can use the Netbox DSP to share the signals between the different studios and the different cabins that we have in the network. And then, for example, as an antenna switcher, we've put in a Netbox 32 AD, and we're using simple Dante controller fixed routing here to provide audio to our STLs for the transmitter sites. I'll show you a example of this, which would be a real case. In this case, it's Lynx FM in England. They built a year and a half ago. They built new facilities, or they inaugurated new facilities in Doncaster with 6 studios. All the studios look the same. They have the same, basically the same configuration. They're AEQ Forum split consoles with audio over IP, and the only analog sources that they have are basically the microphones. The playouts, all the other sources are basically located in central control and converted into audio over IP through the Netbox that they have installed in that system. They're using this Netbox 32, which is basically a 64 by 64 non-blocking routing matrix. They're using that to do the antenna switching, to do the switching between the different studios, and also being able to take the sources from, for example, news feeds to the new studios, using them. And then they can schedule the broadcast and also provide the audio to and from the different playouts systems that they have within the station. The fixed and complementary routing is done with the Dante controller. I'll show you a short video that talks about this and the implementation of this. And this video comes from Broadcast Radio, our UK distributor. And they will explain how they are using the Dante devices in their day-to-day work. Right. So back to the presentation. This is actually the last slide of everything. Before we enter into the Q&A session, I hand over back to Sergey. I just want to tell you that on our website, if you want to look at our references, you're most welcome to do that. And you can find references from a large number of our customers and clients that have been very helpful in allowing us to publish the information that you can find there. So I encourage you to have a look at our website. You can find a lot of information about our radio and audio over IP usage in broadcast. With that, basically, we are at the end of the presentation, and we will enter our Q&A session. I will hand over to Sergey. And before, just a little bit of housekeeping here now. Before anyone asks a question and then says, no, I have to close down. Now, the organization, our people here at AEQ, they want you guys, before you leave, please make sure that you will be presented with a very short questionnaire. In order to help us to improve these webinars, please take a minute or so just to answer these 3 questions. It will be very helpful to them and helpful to us as well. So with that, Sergey, I hand over to you, and you will take the lead on the Q&A session.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you about the the questions. I just forgot to mention in the beginning of the presentation. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions. Well, it's not only a couple, it's a serious number of them. Okay, the first one, I will go for this one, guys. So this one is from Micha, sorry if I'm not pronouncing correctly. So the question is, what do you mean any number of audio over IP cards in Atrium? There is no limit. There is finally a number of slots. Okay, yes. So probably I didn't express myself correctly. What I meant to say is that the limit is the capacity of the engine. So the engine is able to manage up to 1024 audio over IP channels. Okay. Audio pads. So that's the limit. Basically, if imagine yourself, if you would like to build your radio station, put the Atrium mixer, and manage 1024 audio over IP pads, you will be able to do it. Okay, so basically that's the limit. If you want to handle, for example, 500 digital signals, you still have another 524 for example for Dante. Okay, so here the limit, it's not the limit of the physical slots, it's the limit of the channels, of the audio channels that the console is, the engine of the console is able to manage. Okay, so sorry for that. Okay, next question is from Paul, and this one is probably for Peter, okay, or for Roberto. I don't know, you decide, guys. So Paul is telling us that we have already an AEQ mixer, okay. So how can we do the upgrade with the Dante audio? Is the upgrade just hardware?
Depends on the equipment they have.
Exactly.
Because in case it's an analog console, maybe that equipment, you need to add an interface, maybe to connect over analog audio to that interface, and then that interface convert that analog audio to Dante, and send or distribute that audio in the both directions. In case they have a new model, a forum capital IPs, you have the option to add cards, or maybe the BC2000, it has the possibility to add the cards, interface cards. Depends on the equipment. In that case, it's the better way to contact to us, and we send the information and talk about the upgrade.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Roberto, for that. Okay, this one is probably for Julian, okay, because it's 100% about the Audinate equipment and solutions. So Rio is asking us, what's the difference between DDM, Dante Controlling, and Dante Via?
Oh, right. Okay. Very simply put, Dante Via is a user's tool for changing the audio, for controlling the audio sources into and from Dante on their PC. They can select, with Dante Via, they can select either an application like a browser, because they're trying to get audio from YouTube, for example, or they could be choosing Skype. So if they wanted to bring in a participant into the broadcast and that participant is communicating with them through Skype, then they can do that with Dante Via. So Dante Via is like a small audio mixer from your computer into Dante and from Dante. Dante Domain Manager is not what a user would use on a regular day. Dante Domain Manager sits, depends on how your interpretation of above or below, but it basically sits in a supervisory role on top of your entire Dante installation. A Dante Via user, or a Dante controller user, or a Dante virtual sound card user, or indeed a user of an AEQ solution or any one of the other OEM partners would not necessarily know of the existence of Dante Domain Manager. What would happen, however, is that the overall administrator for the entire site would be able to decide, okay, you, Roberto, you have access to this equipment. You, Sergey, you have access to this equipment. And Peter, because you're God, you have access to all of the equipment. So Dante Domain Manager sits above it as a supervisory access control and setup solution for the overall installation. It is you're used to working, most of us are used to working in an IT environment, in an office or in a school, in an educational environment, and we use Windows or Mac OS in order to use our computers. However, somebody in IT is deciding what you can see and what you can use on the network. You can print to some printers, but not all of them. You can go to some file servers, but not all of them. So that's the role of Dante Domain Manager. Does that make sense?
I believe so.
One further question, gentlemen. Is my video okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Just
we
needed
can
a
see
reboot.
the logo as well. So yes, it's good.
Excellent. Just needed a reboot and an uninstall and a reinstall.
Right.
I bet you the professional radio broadcasters can't do this.
Visual radio people can.
Not the voice artists. Not the voice artists.
There you go.
Trust me, I've watched enough of the BBC programs during lockdown to see that no, a lot of them can't do this.
Okay.
A few of them watching maybe, so we should be careful.
They're better now. Is that okay?
Exactly, Julian.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. So Mona is asking us, this one's probably maybe for Peter, can we mix TDM units with IP units in a studio, and how can we solve this transition?
Again, so we can mix
Yes.
TDM units with IP units.
With IP units in a studio, yes. Can we do that? That's basically the question, yes. So I'm literally reading it.
Yeah, that would be possible. But but having the advantage of having a network, I would try to locate them elsewhere, not putting them all in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think what the question is based around a migration to IP.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is fortunate enough to have the financial resources to just say, take it all away,
move out,
put in something all entirely new. So it is perfectly possible to coexist between existing technologies, legacy technologies, analog, TDM, other digital solutions and the world of IP. Indeed, you can mix different versions of audio over IP in the same environment. It does add, there is a layer of complexity which needs to be resolved, but in the case of TDM and analog, straightforward converters are able to do this relatively simply. So yes, you can mix them together. If you look at, I mean, TDM is slightly different, but the world of audio and live sound is, there's a lot of analog equipment, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Most microphones start off analog and then they go into a stage box or a mic preamp in order to convert them to IP. So it's a similar situation. Yes, there is a migration path and there is a period whereby you can have a mix of technologies with IP.
Correct.
Correct, yes. Okay, another one concerning Dante. So let me see who is asking. Okay, so Deceval or Deceval, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly, once again I apologize, is asking, when you have a primary and secondary Dante network with the PC connected to both, does the software make patches on both networks?
Right, the way that primary and secondary work and a PC connected on primary and secondary, we'd have to look in more detail what software they're using to do that. But normal regular Dante equipment, which have a primary and secondary, basically the secondary is an exact copy of everything that is happening on the primary. There is no difference between one and the other. So any change that you make in Dante controller, normally you're making it on the primary, but in the case of Dante's primary and secondary implementation for redundancy, it's happening simultaneously on the secondary. So if you lose a link in the primary path, that's absolutely fine. The equipment is still receiving it on the secondary path, and all Dante equipment will automatically, without any interference or glitch, start using the information that's coming in from the secondary without there being any disturbance to the audio flow. There's no glitch, there's no perceived downtime as far as the performance is concerned.
Yeah, in that case, it's automatically, as Julian said, but in case you have to control the secondary, in case primary go down, you need two interfaces in that PC to control the both primary and secondary.
And for example, the DVS, I'm not sure how the DVS is working on two network cards.
Yes, that was my question at the beginning. If depending on the software, I'm not entirely sure that DVS has the possibility of handling.
I don't think so.
Yeah. For that, there are different solutions which can be incorporated into a PC. DVS is a very low-cost piece of software, and therefore some of its functionality is not as rich as the dedicated Pro equipment. I'll double check that, but I think it might be something that a PCIe Dante card would be able to do without any difference to a regular piece of AEQ's Dante equipment.
Correct.
Yes, correct. Okay, so probably this one is probably for Peter, because as he's been speaking about different scenarios and projects. From your point of view, Peter, Roger is asking, what's the normal time for small radio studio over Dante installation?
All right. Well, to be honest, one of the examples that we saw was Radio Lidköping, and that's basically one studio, one control room, central control that's basically a small rack with a net box. That station was torn down and built up in 4 days without going off air. I mean, keeping the old equipment in place and then doing the transition on the third day. They made the transition to the new equipment, and then the day number 4 they basically closed down all the analog equipment that they had. So It depends. It depends on how much you can plan and how much you can organize in advance, and how organized you are basically, and how well you're planning it. But looking at how it, I mean, the local cabling is, we're looking at a relatively small number of cables, microphones, and some analog sources, some digital sources. But the majority of the cabling is done in structured network, and that is, we only need switches and Ethernet cables, and that's it. And then a lot of things you can do in advance, like planning and making the configurations offline, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, you can't do that in the Dante controller, but you can do it in the AEQ equipment. But once you hook up everything up, and everything is connected on the network level, even if you don't have audio from analog to Dante, you can see the sources and the receivers, the transmitters and the receivers in the Dante network, and then you can start planning, sort of typing in names and saving configurations. Yes.
Yeah, the easy ways to interconnect about audio over IP Dante, because it's the easy ways, like hours or less. But the problem is to configure the workflow and how to work the radio station.
Correct. Yeah, and so I'd say it probably takes longer time to remove all the old equipment than to get the new equipment up and running. So no, seriously, it's
the equipment install. The equipment install is the least of your problems.
Exactly.
The time spent will be removing, like Peter says, removing the legacy equipment that's in there and decommissioning it, and then, as you say, working out precisely what is the workflow that people want to do. And you've got to remember that the previous workflow was determined by the limitations imposed by the technology of the time on what that workflow could be. Once users see the new advantages with any technological advance, but obviously we're talking about AEQ and Dante here, they'll think, oh, I want some of that. I couldn't do this before, but now I can, so I want that programmed into it as well. And at that point, the length of time needed to configure those workflows,
it depends on how complex your operation is, really.
Exactly. It could be very, very short. It can be significantly longer if people want to start doing very complicated things. But it's great to have all these possibilities and all these capabilities, but it does mean that when it comes to actually programming it, okay, decide what you want to do, and then we'll change it because you've discovered new things that you want to do and can do.
Correct. That's right.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so following up with questions regarding installation, Neil is asking, is AEQ offering installation planning and diagrams for IP radio installations for third-party installations companies, or only included with AEQ made installation? Really don't know exactly what it means. Probably Roberto can help us. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but help me, guys. If I'm mistaken, just tell me. Is Anil asking that? Are we able to make an installation with AEQ IP equipment and third-party IP equipment?
In that case, of course, there are no problem, because as Julian said, it's possible to have in the same installation 100 of equipment, of course, 1,000 of equipment of different brands, different manufacturer, and there are no problem to have different equipment. Not only AEQ. Of course, AEQ have a lot of equipment with different interfaces, different proposed, and it's very complete solution. But it's possible to put any other equipment with other manufacturer.
Right. Okay, so this one is for you, Julian. Okay, so Chris is wants to know what's the future for Dante equipment in live production, such as musical theater.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Yes, I will repeat it. So, what is the future for Dante equipment in live production, such as musical theatre? I believe that he's asking if you are thinking in order to make some special sort of equipment for this field of work of production, or
That's where you come from, really, Julian, isn't it?
Well, okay, I have done a few productions in my time, but it's important to realize that we make the technology. We give the technology to companies like AEQ. They decide what products. We did not build or create 2,804 products. AEQ, Shaw, Sennheiser, Yamaha, Crestron, Extron, Focusrite, Allen and Heath, Digico, SSL. Sorry, I'm coughing.
No,
They make the
no
products. So whether or not it's the wrong question, Audinate is not going to make products for musical theatre. We've got the technology. Other companies will build Dante products to meet the demand for musical theatre. So I would be also surprised to hear of a musical theatre environment that Dante equipment does not already address. If it's good for the Opéra de Paris, good enough for the Royal Festival Hall, good enough for the Liceu in Barcelona, good enough for the BBC, good enough for Canal Plus, good enough for various stadiums, I'm certain that we can fulfill that requirement today with the equipment. There's microphones, there's preamps, there's stage amps, there's consoles, there's everything you need to build musical theatre.
Yeah, I just would like to add to that, Julian, that in reality, as you say, that comes down to the manufacturers, and to be honest, I think the first ones that jumped on Audinate and the Dante concept or the Dante protocol were, in fact, these live production.
Oh yeah, primarily we come from Live World.
Because they reduced the time for install, the number of cable runs, etc., that they had to do temporarily for such installations.
Originally,
Dante, for the permanent installations.
Originally, Dante and Audinate was, you're quite right, mostly in the live event space, where that massively multi-channel capability, the ease of deployment, really paid massive dividends. You need to install or retrofit an audio solution into any type of venue. I guarantee you IP is going to be much faster, easier and cheaper to do than any analog or TDM solution. And we would have stayed in live sound if it hadn't been for companies like AEQ that insisted on making products to bring us into the broadcast sector. So we started in live sound, but thanks to AEQ, thanks to other companies, we've been popularized in broadcast. But Dante is a technology. It's not a product. What people do with that technology, I can't control it. AEQ wants to build a converter, fine. I'm not going to stop it. If you as a user see that there is a missing product, that there is not a particular version that exists, speak to Audinate, get the license, build it. If you have the knowledge, build it. We did not grow to this size by building 2,804 products ourselves. We got to the position we are today because we partner with AEQ. You can build a product. We don't even know what you're building. We don't know exactly how many products are on the market. We have to keep regularly checking because I can't control. You might have brought out 3 or more products since we spoke, since our last webinar. Shaw brings out new products. Yamaha brings out new products. I'm not controlling it. It's the manufacturers that are using our technology to build products. So in terms of musical theatre, we have totally got you covered. That's where we originally come from. We're here with AEQ today talking about a predominantly radio broadcasting environment, but Dante is not purely for radio. If you want to use a Shaw microphone or a speaker from any other manufacturer, it'll work in both the live sound and in the broadcasting space. So the products are out there. On the Audinate website, we try to list as many of the OEM's products as we can. So if you go to audinate.com and search for, I think it's products, you will see a link to Dante-enabled products, and you can find anything you like. Seriously, anything you like. Converters, speakers, stage boxes, dedicated microphones, consoles, amps, DSPs, blah, 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 etc. You can search also by manufacturer as well. So you can just see all of the products that AEQ make, or all of the products that Yamaha makes. So yeah, the choice is vast. I am certain that there's something there for not just broadcasters like we're talking today, but for live sound as well. Like I said, it's good enough for the Royal Albert Hall. You should be okay.
Okay.
By the way, did I mention that I've sung at the Royal Albert Hall? I think that's what Peter was getting.
Okay, next one. From this one is from Mustafa. Probably this one is for Roberto, because Roberto has been involved in a lot of installations and setup, and also remotely. By the way, he helped a lot of me and my customers in order to make a remote setup. So Mustafa is asking is if it's possible remote setup from factory for Dante installation and also remote training.
Yeah,
I believe
of course.
yes.
It's of course it's possible to connect to that equipment, to the client equipments, and control it, configure it, check if in case there are any kind of problem or on the configuration, or maybe in the functionalities, etc. And of course the training the same. We use tools like that, or maybe connecting by TeamViewer, AnyDesk, or any other remote desktop software. There are no problem.
Yes, yes, I believe indeed we almost daily connect with our customer in order to help them with installation and control of the equipment. Yes. Okay. Still have actually a lot of questions. Okay, we'll select. Okay, next one. Okay, this one's probably for Peter. Okay, so Hein or Hein, if it's from Germany, is asking us, I missed the beginning. Please let me know what TDM stands for.
Time division multiplex. Yeah, it's basically what you do is you take samples over a period of time, and you well, that's what time division multiplex means.
Oh yes, exactly.
You cut them up, a certain moment of time, yes. And then
and then send them down. So basically, exactly. You're dividing whatever you want to send. There'll be multiple channels, multiple signals. You divide them
in several, or in a lot of,
and then you can send them. So it's
just a way. For one second, I thought that Oliver, what's the name of the English guy? The cooker, the one.
Jamie Oliver.
Jamie Oliver was join us for 1 second.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think he does TDM recipes.
No.
Me neither. Okay.
Yeah, it's a technology for it's a way of taking information, taking sound, taking audio, whatever, and splitting it up into bite-sized pieces that you can send down a particular cable to arrive at the other side and then be reconstructed. That's what it's doing.
Yeah, it's old package technology basically, but it's originating from the telecoms industry basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this one is regarding Dante and regarding Wi-Fi. So here's the question is, it's possible to transmit / stream audio via Dante via Wi-Fi?
Right, okay. To get, technically, Dante is data. As far as the network is concerned, it doesn't know that this is somebody speaking, or that this is a musical instrument, or this is somebody singing. It doesn't know. So it's just data, and data will go where data is told to go on a normal network. However, in the case of Wi-Fi, while it is technically possible to get Dante across Wi-Fi, you have to understand that there's different qualities of Wi-Fi, and what most people consider to be the same Wi-Fi that they connect to at a cafe or at home is not the same thing, or in a company, is not the same thing as the network that can deliver the time sensitive and low latency and multi-channel that broadcast audio or live audio requires. There's a world of difference between sitting in a cafeteria and listening to Spotify through the cafeteria's Wi-Fi, which is possible, and then trying to connect a Yamaha console or an AEQ device in a cyber cafe or in a Starbucks, or other coffee shops exist as well, and trying to send audio that way. That being said, technically it is possible, and if you are in very precise environments, say between two buildings that are separated across a street, companies have decided that instead of paying somebody to dig a hole across the street and put in a piece of dedicated cable from one side to the other, they have just gone onto the roof and put in focused Wi-Fi transmitters and receivers to send dedicated, and I mean dedicated, it is not shared with anybody else, dedicated Wi-Fi signals from one point to the other. So technically it's a form of Wi-Fi, it's a form of wireless, but it is not the broad multiple devices connecting over Wi-Fi and surfing the web. It is being used in a far more pointed and much more limited way. Audinate, because we realize that we've created a technology that has to meet the highest levels of reliability and quality and usability, we only officially support cabled connections, Ethernet switches, gigabit and above, and so on, to connect devices, because we know that that will work. We cannot make the same guarantee with Wi-Fi, because my home Wi-Fi router, no, seriously, I might have lots of devices running. In a company, you can have hundreds of people connected on Wi-Fi. Audinate cannot guarantee the performance of that Wi-Fi network. However, some people, really clever networking people, have realized it's just data. And as long as we do not have anybody challenging the traffic for taking bandwidth or increasing latency, yeah, I can put a focused Wi-Fi transmitter here and a focused Wi-Fi receiver here, operating at higher than 54 megabit speed, but operating at gigabit speed. And between the buildings across the city, for example, yes, I can do Wi-Fi from one user to another user, but these are not your normal laptops and cellular phones. These are
like a point-to-point radio link.
It's using Wi-Fi as a point-to-point radio link. It has been done, but because we're not certifying products for that usage, people have done it, they've tested it, it works. But do not expect to set up Dante in a cafe using their Wi-Fi system. Cable is best. Cable guarantees you the latency.
Yes, indeed.
And the number of channels that you want in a broadcast environment, in a recording environment, or indeed in a live sound environment.
Exactly. By the way, still being only one Ethernet cable, so.
Yep.
Yeah, one Ethernet cable at gigabit speed, you can have over 500 channels of pro quality audio, and anyone can pull an Ethernet cable from one side of the building to another. You try doing 500 channels with a traditional analog or digital solution. You're carrying cables the size of power plant electricity generating stations. So
yes,
much easier with IP.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Wi-Fi, not for general distribution, but between point to point. Technically, it can be done, and it has been done multiple times.
Okay, great to know that. Okay. So this one is probably for Peter. So Seth is asking us, how many process can we have in our Netbox DSP?
Well,
you're caught me off guard here. I think it's it's 68. I think
64. It's possible to have a 64 signal at the same
64
time
exactly.
to edit a process.
So it can be 64
depends
interval in or out or cross
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, of course. Of course, you can modify the audio levels, the cross point, zoom the signal, etc., and add it up to 64 signal the process, and we could have up to 168 audio channels, the maximum in netbox DSP equipment.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so it's been quite a long far away, so it's already like 2 hours and 15 minutes of webinar. I believe we still have time for less question. Okay, we still have a lot of them, but anyway, don't worry because we will answer all of them by email. Okay, so let's place the last one. Okay, and I believe we can finish the webinar. Okay, so okay, so here's a good one. What's the maximum number of Dante units in an IP network?
Julian.
There is no practical limit. There is no practical limit. The bigger that you make the network, the faster the connections, the more devices you can put in. We've calculated that theoretically there's a maximum limit, but it's more than the number of grains of sand on a beach. It's a ridiculous number going into the billions and billions and billions. So technically, there is no limit to the number of Dante devices that you can install in a network. There is a limit to how many simultaneous channels can go across a link, but that's talking about simultaneous channels.
Yes.
And depending on your bandwidth, we're not limited to just working at 1 gig. We can work perfectly happily on a 10 gig link or on a 40 gig link. And I've seen the prices coming down for some secondhand 10 gig equipment, which makes it just ridiculous, the amount of bandwidth that is possible. And therefore, theoretically, the number of simultaneous audio signals that can go through that single piece of cable, whether it's UTP or fiber. There is no practical limit. No one in the world has designed a network too big or has a need for more devices than we can supply. It doesn't exist. In practical terms, there is no limit, but I welcome anybody to try and prove us wrong. If you have the bank account big enough to buy every single product from every single Dante manufacturer,
From AEQ first. Okay.
Yeah. We have no problem that tried with AEQ equipment.
I am sure that Peter will be willing to negotiate on the price for 20,000 or 30,000 of any of the AEQ products.
More than happy, yes.
40,000, 60,000, 100,000 AEQ products with Dante. Let's say you want to put in a 40 gig switches, and you want to send tens of thousands of audio signals across your network. By all means, do it. Money back if it doesn't work. There you go. Yeah, there is no limit. There is no
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for my colleagues today. Thank you to Julian to join us, Roberto and Peter. And once again, please be so kind and ask to the 4-3 questions before you leave. Okay. And once again, we will answer all the questions made by email. We'll come back to you. And if you need some further details, further information from Audinate, please, you have Julian Carro and his contact details. And if you have some questions about AEQ equipment, you are very welcome to come to us. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for your attention and see you all next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Nice working with you again. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.